Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a very sleepy Kruger National Park in South Africa. We are Safari Live, and my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on camera we have Senzo. So welcome everybody, and I'd like to give a very special welcome to the Fairview Elementary School as well as the Diamond Springs Elementary. This is a very special drive for you kiddies, so please send through your questions with your teachers, and for everybody else, join us on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the live chat on YouTube, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. For now, we start off with the little kiddies. Now, let's have a look over here. We've got a whole bunch of sleeping lions, and this is generally what they do in the middle of the day. So we've got a whole bunch of them. It's about 5 adults, so 5 big mommies with all sorts of little youngsters and everything all in the mix there. And look how they're rolling over and just enjoying the afternoon sleep. Everybody's probably been very busy during last night, and so they're getting as much rest as they can. So we're going to sit here, and when you do come back to us, I'm sure we'll still have some sleeping cats for you. But in the meantime, let's go over to Tristan, who I think has got a bird to show you.
I do indeed, Ralph. I have a beautiful, big, great white egret that is on the hunt for fish and frogs and all kinds of other little things that occurs in the water. It should be interesting to watch. There you go. Do you see it? Grabbed something. So it's looking for little tiny frogs at the moment that are all hanging around in the grass itself. Now, before we get into our egret and before we talk about it too much, I must say hello to all of you. It is a very warm welcome from myself, Tristan, and on camera today I have Viam, and especially warm welcome to Fairfield Elementary and Diamond Springs that has joined us this afternoon. I hope that you will have a wonderful time with us and that you will ask us lots and lots of questions via your teacher, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. And for our regular viewers, remember, you can send your questions through a little bit later on hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat when we're done with the school drive. Right, now our great white egret has been a real treat to watch lately because it's kind of going along the edges of the water, and what you'll see is, you see how it gets its neck low, and it's got that long neck that it keeps in an S shape, and the reason that it does that is you see how it can stretch it out, so it's able to keep its neck coiled, and that means as when it sees a prey animal, it shoots that neck out, and that big stabbing beak can grab those frogs, and it can then eat them from there. Now at the moment we've had a bit of rain recently, and that this little area that it's walking around in is a flooded section, so there's going to be lots of little frogs inside there, tiny little baby frogs, and so it's an easy place for this egret to hunt. So watch it. You see how it goes close? Now it's getting to the point where it goes and it walks a little bit, and sometimes its feet will disturb things and it feels something and then it sits. There we go. You see it grab something. It's very small, the things that it's eating. Just now we saw it have a little frog, and you could actually see the legs and of the frog sticking out of the beak, and so if we watch it close enough we may be able to see it happen once again. It's probably now, I've watched it for the last, I would say, 10 minutes. And I've seen this bird grab at least 4 or 5 frogs already. So it's having a real good time of it. And it's obviously a lot of easy meals there for it to hunt. Now this is the largest of our egrets. That's why it's called a great white egret. And the reason I know it's a great white egret is because it's got black legs from the body all the way down. And then if you look at the beak, it is yellow all the way throughout with a yellow eye. Now the only other bird you would maybe confuse it would be with a little egret, but the little egret is much smaller, and at the end of the day has a bit of black around the eye. It doesn't have a full yellow beak and eye. But let's see now, when it gets into the grassy areas, that's where it seems to be. There, you see, look in the beak, you see it? Little frog that's unfortunately met its end. It's not nice if you're a frog, but this bird is having the best time. It's amazing to watch this bird and how it's able to find them, and it doesn't miss. Every time it walks along like this, it seems to be able to find something. Look, there we go. There you go. You see it? It goes down very quickly. It's a quick gobble down and then on to the next one. And like I say, it hasn't missed a single time yet. Every time it stabs its beak forward, it seems to be catching what it's looking for. But you see, it stops now and it's looking. So this is a lot more active in terms of hunting than we would see from the lions that Ralph has got. Those lions are going to take a lot longer to stalk, and they'll probably only chase an animal once or twice during a hunting session, whereas these guys, you can see they hunt a lot more, and the reason why is because this bird is hunting much smaller things, right? So it's catching little baby frogs, whereas the lions, to feed all those mouths, they're going to be having to catch big animals like buffalo and things like that, giraffe and all of those, and so they have to kind of try and chase them, and those animals run a lot faster than what these frogs do, and so that's why this bird is a lot more successful than what the lions are. But let's see, did it get anything? Oh, it missed. It's its first miss. Oh no. I'm sure it will recover from that. You see how it walks from the grass areas and it tries to go to the other grass areas. It tries to miss the water in between because there's not too much in between, and it's also harder to hunt. The frogs are able to swim a lot better when they're out in the open, but when they're still little babies, they like to hang around in this thick grass, and so as the egret moves around, it can spot them on the grass and then grab them quickly. Now, which frogs it is very difficult to say. It could be a number of different types of frogs that occur here, and now it's just washing them down and having a little drink just to wash down all those little froggies. That was absolutely amazing. Well, we're going to carry on. We're going to try and see if I can find a spotted, beautiful leopard for all of you. And so while I go and look for that, I believe Steph, who's out on foot on a bushwalk, has something small to show you.
Sorry, excuse me, I didn't hear any of that. Right. My name is Steph, and you on a bushwalk this afternoon with Genre, and we've got a very, very special little creature right underneath us. It's called a velvet ant, but that wouldn't be describing it 100%. And the reason for that is because it's actually a wasp. And I want to show you what it looks like here. Now, the local guys in this particular area, the local guys in this particular area believe that if you get stung by one of these, it's a sign of good luck. And quite often you see youngsters juggling this wasp and putting it in their pockets and waiting until they get stung. And once they get stung, they think that it is good luck. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you to go and get stung by wasps. Wasps have a very powerful venom, and a lot of you might be allergic to them, and so don't go and do that. That's just one of these things that people do in this particular place. I'm not telling you to do it. But I want to show you that why she, and it's a she, it's not a he, why she has no wings is because wasps look after their babies by feeding them the live insects of other insects. And so they kill other insects and feed them to their babies. And she lives on termites and ants. Can you believe it? So she's a wasp. Now, wasps and ants and bees all belong to the same insect group, but she is able to feed her babies on basically ants and termites, on other members of ants and termites. And there she is over there. She's now one of the biggest ones that you get. We call them velvet ants because of the fact that their bottoms have a nice fur on them. Yeah, she's going to come into the open for us. There you go. You can have a good view of her coming through there. Isn't that special? So a wasp called a velvet ant. Nice, eh? She's got a long sting. The sting is probably about, I'd say about half an inch long. It's easily half the length of her body. So her sting can protrude half the length of her body out. And that way she can really get it in to the deep, sometimes the deep cavities where the termite babies are living and the ant babies are living. Right, I have got a problem with my radio, so I'm just going to turn it on. All right, excuse me. So, we're going to send you over to James. I'll figure out what's going on with my radio. We'll catch up with you in a little bit.
Hello everybody at school today. I hope you're having a decent day at school there. Look at what we've found here. A whole group of spiders. And they're called baboon spiders, and you in the United States will recognize them as baby tarantulas. They're just exactly the same kind of spider as a tarantula, and if you look carefully now as I change the focus, you see those big legs? That's their mother. Oh, she's coming out. See, she's getting cross with us. Her babies are climbing on her face. Isn't that amazing? I'll show you where she lives shortly. Ooh, she doesn't like the light. Now this spider can't actually, well, it can bite, but it's not harmful to human beings. I'm going to move the microscope out the way. Isn't this wonderful? So we're sitting here in this little clearing, and I'm sitting with my microscope here. It's a very clever thing. And a microscope is something that is able to look at things that are very, very small, like those spiders. My name's James, and on camera today is Fergus. There is his thumb. And we'd like to hear any questions that you have. You can just ask your teacher, and she will get, or he will find some way to get them into my ear. Just over here. So what I'm going to do is put this microscope back down the spider's hole. The little spiders are only this big. Tiny. They look quite big on the microscope, but that's because it is magnifying. That means it makes things look bigger. And the mother's about the size of my palm. Like that. Isn't that amazing? Let's try this once more, shall we? Just move this back into place. Focus a little bit. The little ones have gone back inside. I think they quite like the light because this little microscope's got its own light. Now, Key and Asia, you're wondering, as we wait for the little things to come out again, why the spider's legs are yellow. And you see, there are so many questions in the world that have no answers, and I think that might be one of them. They are yellow because they have hair on them. That's why they're that colour. But why nature has made the hairs yellow on their legs, I really don't know. Their mother has got yellow hairs also on her legs. Let's just see if we can't get them to come out once more. That's very special. And we have to be careful with a nest like this. I'll tell you why. If you destroy this nest, so if I was to come... Oh, there we go. There's Mum. She's coming out. Look at her. She's getting very cross. If you destroy this nest, that Mum will not be able to dig another one. She's got a special spike on the back of her legs that allows her to dig this hole that she lives in only once. Once she's dug this spike, or dug this hole, the spike wears down and she can never dig another hole. So that's why we're very careful when we look into a nest like this, that we don't do any harm at all to the hole, because otherwise the spider will be homeless. And nobody wants to see a homeless spider, do we? I don't think we want a homeless spider. Okay, let's move away from this little area here. We're going to see what else we can find over here on this clearing with our microscope, and I'll show you a very special little friend of mine called Ronald just now. Let's go back to Ralph and his lions.
Yes, everybody, and we are back with the lions, and all of a sudden they've started to wake up. They've all been stretching, they've all been doing a little bit of yawning, and maybe they're going to start moving around. Byron asking a question, what do lions eat? Byron, lions eat some of the buck that walk around here, and this group of lions, they like to eat buffalo in particular. They very much enjoy eating buffalo, so maybe one of the mommy lions there has got the smell of some buffalo in the area. Maybe that's why she's woken them all up and she's saying, right, come on crew, let's get moving. But in the background she's just laid down as well, so maybe it's a false alarm. Maybe they just want to get a little bit of exercise, just moving from place to place. But they're all starting to yawn a little bit, like you do when you wake up after a long snooze. Very relaxed, but they're all starting to wake up now. Now this group of lions is all part of a big team. Like if you play in a soccer team or an American football or baseball, everybody needs to work together if you want to win the game. Now these lions need to work together in order for them to get food. Dakota asking the question, why do lions stick their tongue out when they roar? Well, I think it's the same as if you want to sing as loud as you can. Sometimes you do stick your tongue out as well, because it just helps you make more noise. So I think they just open their mouths and their tongue comes out when they roar. But when they were opening their mouths now, it was for yawning. And you see what this mommy lion is doing. There we go. See how that one was yawning? That's a little youngster. But what they're also doing as well is they're cleaning themselves. So very often after they wake up, they start to lick their paws and they clean themselves all over. They're very clean animals, cats are. And I'm sure if you've got a kitty cat at home, you would also see that they do that. They lick their paw and they wipe their head with it, because it's difficult for them to lick their heads. So they lick their paw and then they wipe their paw over their head. Very clever. So this team that we have here of lions, they will all work together to get food. They also help to chase any hyenas away that might come and bother them. And with them yawning now, it seems like we might be lucky and we might see them moving off, and then we can follow them. Now, if Senzo goes a little bit off to the side, we can see the big daddy lion over here, and he's also just starting to wake up. He was sleeping soundly a minute ago, but now, with all the females waking up, Antoine asking the question, why do they have a tuft of hair at the end of their tails? Well, Antoine, that's a very good question. They do use that to help each other follow each other through the long grass, and they also use the black on the back of their ears. You see those spots? It's the same as that black tuft of hair on the end of their tail. Now, when they're moving through the thick grass, they all look very camouflaged and you can't see them. So they use that to be able to follow each other when it's difficult to see in the long grass. Now, I'm sure you would have seen The Lion King cartoon movie, and these are all like Nala, who was the mommy. Eventually, I think she was one of the younger ones, but the daddy lion over there, he's like Simba, who grows up to be the big daddy lion. See how they're still cleaning each other, cleaning themselves, and sometimes they clean each other as well. That's all part of the team working together. And that daddy lion over there, he's got a lot of hair around his head, and that shows that he's one of the big daddies, and it also helps to protect him. If he has to fight against hyenas or other lions, he's got lots of hair to help protect his neck. Like you would wear in American football, where you put a brace around your neck. This is like a natural brace for the lions. There he looks at us a little bit, but he still does look very tired. I don't think he really wants to wake up just yet. He's looking a little bit irritated with all the girls waking up and making a fuss. But he doesn't want to leave them, because he knows if they go off, they're probably going to find food. So he wants to follow them. Okay, so from one group of animals to another, I think Steph has found you a little nest.
And definitely unlike the lions, well, actually maybe like the lions that use camouflage to hunt their prey, this bird used camouflage to hide its nest. So using camouflage in two different ways. Now, camouflage obviously is the hiding away of something. Lions use their ability to walk around at night and to stay hidden in the grass and to be the same color as the grass. This little bird was a flycatcher, and it wove its nest out of grass. You can see there a cup-shaped nest out of grass, and then covered it with lichen. Now, lichen they would have harvested from trees around the area. And you might ask yourself, but Steph, how did they stick the lichen to the nest? And the answer is with spider webs. And that's what makes this so special, is that this lichen is stuck to the grass using spider webs that they got from the bush. So the birds collected grass, wove a nest, then collected lichen and wove the lichen onto the nest using sticky spider webs. Can you see there? Look how many spider webs they had to collect to stick this camouflage to their nests. Isn't that absolutely amazing? Bet you never thought that birds could be so clever to use spider webs, hey? They would have had their cup-shaped nest. It would have been in the fork of a tree. These birds love using forks of trees. Let me see if I can find you the fork of a tree. Walk with me quickly. Let's go find you one. So Amy, you wanted to know, while I find a fork for this, you wanted to know, how often does it rain here, Amy? Now, Amy, it rains really hard here from January until the end of March, and then it peters off until about the end of July, where we get no rain from the end of July all the way until the end of October around about. And then in November it starts to pick up a little bit with a little bit of heavier rain over Christmas time in December. We're looking forward to it coming back now. And then January, February, March again. So we only have 3 years of 3 months, excuse me, 3 years, what am I saying? 3 months of rain out here, Amy. Have a look at how camouflaged this nest is with all its camouflaging. Isn't that the most amazing thing? And I can take it out and you can see that there's not much on this tree to hide it away. That is the power of camouflage. Have a look at that. Very cool, hey? Using lichen, spider webs and grass, this bird was able to hide its eggs away from, I don't actually know what it would hide it away from. Alright, now my friend Scott, he's also on a bushwalk, and I'm sure he's wanting to show you what he's got up his sleeve today.
Hi everyone, I am on bushwalk. My name is Scott. I'm teamed up with Dave on camera, and of course we also have Herbie with us to help us with an extra set of eyes and ears, and it was his ears that actually helped us to detect this herd of elephants. And he could hear them before we could actually see them. And as you can see, this vegetation is very, very thick, so it's a great example of how often your ears can be more useful in finding animals than your eyes, especially in thick habitats like this. Now, the wind is kind of in our favor. It's not the perfect situation, although now it does look like it is because it's blowing straight away from us, but quite often the wind swirls, and there have been moments when the wind starts blowing a little bit towards these elephants, which is going to make approaching them very difficult and dangerous. So what I think we're going to do is, rather than taking any unnecessary risks, is we'll move on and see if we can find anything else of interest. There's so much going on here. It sounds like you guys have got off to a great walk, a great safari so far. And let's just move out of this area, create a bit of distance between us and them. And I'm very envious of your sighting of the baboon spider nest. That sounded incredible. And Steph's also found your bird's nest, which also sounded pretty cool. So good to hear that you guys have got off to a good start. Lots going on here on Djuma today. Lions, leopards, you name it. Hi Amy, good to have you with us. You'd like to know if the male elephants are more aggressive than the females. And no, usually it's the opposite way around. The mothers tend to have a lot of maternal instinct, and therefore if they ever feel that their youngsters are threatened in any way, they will try and defend them to the best of their ability. So you tend to find the breeding herd of elephants more dangerous than the males. Possibly another reason on top of that is that you find the females moving in larger herds ordinarily than the bulls will move in. So more elephants to deal with when a situation does get out of control obviously makes things difficult. Bulls are usually a little bit more understanding of us, and even though they may charge up to us, they often stop at the last moment and not actually commit to a full attack. So that's been the case very often with me. And there is a time though, Amy, that the males get into a sexually heightened stage called must, and what that means is that they've got a lot of testosterone floating through their veins, and they can be a little bit naughty. It doesn't necessarily make them more dangerous, it's just they're a little bit more cheeky. So our plans are to try and work some areas where nobody has explored today.
We've got quite a few trackers out at the moment, scouring Djuma for any animals, so we want to go into an area where they haven't looked yet to see if we can find any hidden treasures. Hello Riley, you would like to know, what prey do elephants eat? Well, they don't eat any prey, unless of course it's an unlucky grasshopper that they eat when they rip up a clump of grass. All they eat are things like this, leaves, grass. You may even find that an elephant pushed down this tree. Not very recently, but they'll do that in order to access the high leaves that they cannot reach, sometimes even the roots of the tree and the bark. So anything that is not meaty, just about elephants will eat. Also the fruits from certain trees. So they can be quite fussy actually, which is interesting, and they do like the sweetest, tastiest and most nutritious meals available depending on the time of the year. Very good. We're going to keep searching for any hidden treasures, like I said, and send you back to Ralph, who's already found some treasure.
To the den. Now, unfortunately, there's a few little gremlins that are getting into the system with Ralph. Now, I'm busy trying to follow some tracks. So here on my left-hand side are tracks for what looks like a leopard. I've just spotted these tracks. I'm not 100% sure if it is a leopard or not, but I'm going to quickly have a little look and see if it is. Now, it is indeed a track for a female leopard. So if we have a look over here, this is probably the clearest track there. That is the footprint for a female leopard. Now we know which female leopard this is was because there's a female leopard that is denning, which means she's got a little cub somewhere close by, and she's probably come out of the den last night. The track itself I know is not from right now for quite a few reasons, and the reason why I know it's not from right now is because on top of this track is quite a few little sort of spots on it. It's very difficult to see from the camera, but we had a little bit of rain this morning. When rain falls, it will make little spots on the track itself, so these tracks would have been from early this morning. The other thing is that I can see that there are bits of plants that have fallen inside the track, so leaves and sticks and those kind of things have fallen on top. If there was a leaf and the leopard had walked here on top of the leaf, it pushes the leaf into the ground and is in the track itself. When they sit on top, it means that the track is off, well, before the leaf fell on the track in the end. Now, the reason we also know this is a leopard and not something like a hyena or maybe a lion or something like that is that if you have a look here, it's quite difficult, but because the sand is very soft, so the track is not clear. But at the back here, I've got 1, 2, 3 lobes, which is very typical of all the cats, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 toes with no claws on the front. If this was a hyena in soft sand like this, we would get a little claw mark at the front of all of these tracks, and the foot would actually go outwards like this and not be straight like we're seeing here. The thing is, these tracks are heading the opposite direction from where I've come, and so I haven't found any further signs of her down this riverbed, but we'll just keep looking around. There's a little water hole up here and a water hole on my right hand side that I want to go and quickly have a look at and see. Maybe she's lying there. It is a hot, humid afternoon, and so she might be going and trying to find a little bit of water, so it's worth trying to look in those sections. Now, let's have a look. It seems as though she's coming from this side, but let's have a look and we'll double check. And while we do that, I believe Ralph's lions have found themselves something that has the same name as a leopard, but is not the same thing.
Yes, everybody, and that big daddy lion, he's gotten up, but now look what this little youngster has found. When he picks it up, there we go, he's got himself a tortoise. Now, it's quite difficult for him to be able to eat that tortoise because the tortoise is inside the shell, and this is a young lion, and he doesn't know that it's quite difficult for him to get in. Whoop, yep, he dropped the ball and he nearly fell out the tree. And you can see he's looking a little bit silly, isn't he? Yeah, and looks like he might be a little bit stuck. I'm sure he's going to be embarrassed after this. Juliana asking the question, why do they climb on trees? Well, lions don't generally climb in trees. They're not as good as leopards going up a tree. And as you could see when that one nearly fell off the tree, they're not the best climbers. So they will climb up a little bit on the trees to be able to see if there's some animals in front, or if they're trying to steal some meat from a leopard. But generally lions don't climb very well at all. So they've just moved a little bit off in front of us, and I think we're just going to catch up a little bit with them. So let's go forward, because they're all moving around a little bit, and maybe we'll see some action. Amber asking the question, why are the lions so thin? Well, Amber, they're thin because they are practicing every day to try and catch animals, so they are very fit. They're always running around when they're not sleeping. So we'll see here why they are so thin, because I'm sure these youngsters are going to get up to no good, like this one over here, who is still trying to play with that tortoise. He's trying to get inside of it, but he hasn't quite learned just yet that a tortoise is very difficult to eat because of that hard shell that he's got. So they've all started to get up and move a little bit around, and it's all getting very exciting, because maybe we're going to see them do something special and not just fall out of trees. See there, the youngsters starting to play a little bit. Domache asking the question, why are their teeth so sharp? Well, for them to get food, they do need to be able to have sharp teeth so that they can kill the animals that they're going to eat. So it's very important for them to have very long, sharp teeth, because they don't want to let an animal suffer. So those teeth help them to bite the animal, and then when they need to eat, it helps them to be able to cut the meat and be able to eat. So they're still moving on a little bit, and let's keep going on a little bit forward, and we keep seeing where they're going. We wonder if they're going to find some other animals where they're moving, or if they're just going to go to another place and go and sleep under a tree. But one of them has decided to climb on another tree, but I'm going to get into a better position here so that we can see these lions on the tree. But in the meantime, let's go over to James with his rover.
Now, one of the most fun things I used to do when I was a kid was play with a remote controlled car. When I was very lucky, I'm not very good, I tend to break these things, unfortunately. Well, we've got a really special little robot at the moment with a camera on his front, and his name is Ronald. There he is. He's not moving. Ronald, why are you not moving? Hang on. Oh, Ronald. How very disappointing. Anyway, that's the picture you can see there of Ronald's. But for some reason he's decided he's not going to move. Let me see if I can just try and fix it. It's very irritating that he's decided not to move now, just as you came to see us. I think maybe we're running short of batteries. Anyway, that's his picture, and he's looking for friends. And he's hoping there's a hardy-dar ibis that's just landed nearby. He's hoping that'll come and say hello to him. He's hoping that maybe there'll be, I don't know, perhaps a terrapin. Ooh, there we go. Now he's moving. Look at that. Isn't that nice? That's very special. Now he's going to go down to the water and see if he can find a friend like a terrapin. There we go. Terrapin is like a tortoise that lives in the water. You've just seen the tortoise with the lions. And this fellow that I'm looking for is like a tortoise, but he lives in fresh water. So he's called a terrapin. We'll just get a little bit closer, because Ronald is not very good in the water. He can't swim, you see. And so if he gets into the water, he'll be in a lot of trouble. Isn't that nice? What a beautiful picture. All right, let's keep exploring. Let's see where else Ronald can go. We'll bring him towards us, maybe. And there you can see us. Can you see me? There we are. That's Fergus waving. That's quite fun. Let's go and look at this part here. Sometimes the birds like Ronald, sometimes they get a bit nervous of him. But it's the terrapins we want to find here. And you know what happened to Ronald once, everybody? He was kicked into the water by an elephant. Didn't like him at all. And we had to fix him, we had to replace his parts, his insides. But now he's fine. Isn't he fun? So hopefully sometime we will have a friend for him to play with, because at the moment I think he's a bit nervous. Alrighty, let's go back to Ralph and his lions. They're moving now, which is very exciting.
Yes, and the youngsters, they've been climbing up on the tree, playing around a little bit, being very silly. But this one, you can see he's actually sharpening his nails a little bit on the tree as well. But he doesn't have the best balance. And they have been falling around. Layla asking the question, how heavy are lions? Now, the females, or the mommy lions, when they get very big, they're at about 120 kilograms, which is about 250 pounds. And if we had to put that into something that you can liken that to, it's probably one of the biggest people that you've ever seen. That's how big or heavy the mommies are, and the daddies. Now I'm just getting out the way so that you can see him nicely. And the daddy lions, they are double that size, so nearly 500 pounds the daddy lions will be. But these little youngsters, they're about half the size of the biggest person that you've ever seen, and they're still growing. But they will grow big like mom and dad one day. But for the time being, they're nice and young, and they're very playful and like to fall out of trees. Now, they're walking a little bit away from us, so in a minute we're going to start and move up over to them. So while we do that, let's go across to Steph, who has got some dung to show you.
I definitely do have some dung to show you. This is a mountain of dung, and it is a sign that quite a rare animal, one of the rarest of the large herbivores, is around. This is the enormous dung pile of a white rhinoceros, and specifically of a male white rhinoceros. He's made this entire heap of dung here over the course of many months and many years. And what he does is he walks up to this dung pile. It's his latrine. Latrine is another fancy word for a toilet. He goes to the bathroom, depositing a whole bunch of dung. Then he kicks with his back feet. And he kicks onto this pile. And while he's doing it, he's getting the smell of all this dung into his feet and into the cracks onto the bottom of his foot. And then what he does is he walks off. And as he walks off, he leaves smelly footprints of his dung all over his territory. And at various places around his territory, he'll have these dung mountains that he'll come and refresh from time to time. And as he walks all over the place, he leaves an imprint of his territory for other rhino to come and find. And so another bull rhino that walks up to his area will find his footprint and say, "Ooh, but this is Fred's territory, or Simon's territory, or Paul's territory," whatever rhino call one another. I don't know what they call each other in the end. But and they get to know one another. And of course, rhino territories are defended. And the reason for that is inside these territories, the much smaller territory of female rhino live. And so the male that has the biggest territory that he can defend has the most female rhino, and therefore most of the babies are going to be his. And that's a good thing from a genetic point of view. The biggest rhino able to hold the largest area with the most babies, obviously is the best person to be the father of their babies. All right, we're going to send you over to Scott, who's got a fly.
Yes, we do indeed. We've got a carpenter fly. And it's quite interesting. It's quite bee-like in appearance, but
it's not a bee. So it's an interesting form of mimicry. So maybe it'll get some extra added respect from animals that are scared of bees, because of course they have their stings. What you may be able to see is that long proboscis, which it uses to push into flowers and then suck out the nectar. And it looks like I can even see a little drop of something coming out of the proboscis now. And it's growing. So it seems like it's dribbling a little bit. Can you see that, Dave? Now this is absolutely fascinating. What are the chances that we would see it doing it as we started talking about it? And a perfect adaptation and needle-like mouth parts. And they're very important animals, these carpenter flies. I know a lot of people can get frustrated with flies, but a lot of them are very, very important animals in our ecosystems, because this one will be able to help pollinate flowers as it goes around from flower to flower, sucking up the tasty nectar. Its fluffy little body, as well as its legs, will capture the pollen and transport that across to other flowers, thus helping in the pollination. I don't know why it's chosen to sit on this funny little spot here, because there doesn't seem to be too much to feed on, and maybe it's just taking a time out and relaxing here after what has been a successful day. Maybe it's belly so still now we can see something coming out of its proboscis again. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And who knows, maybe it's trying to blow bubbles. I certainly can't explain this behavior, or maybe it had too much to eat today, and now it's got nowhere to store it. Absolutely fascinating. Well, I'm definitely going to have some homework to do when I get home to try and work out why exactly it would be doing this. The blob's getting so big now. I wonder what it is doing. Okay. Well, that is the joy of being out on foot in the African wilderness. It's not only the big things like the elephants that we bumped into earlier, but also the small but equally important and interesting little animals like these. And it's important to remember that we took a lot of these smaller animals out of their ecosystem, then the big animals like elephants would suffer, because if there was no plants being pollinated by these little flies, then there wouldn't be enough food for the elephants to feed on. Hello Aidan, you'd like to know how big can a carpenter bee get? And they're usually all a fairly similar size. At least the ones that I've seen are, ooh, looks like it's doing some cleaning now. And they've got those big compound eyes with hundreds and thousands of little lenses on each eye. But yes, Aidan, usually the same size as a regular kind of bee, I would say, is the size of them. It's difficult to show you perspective. I don't want to chase it off, but I'd say it's about the size of my fingernail. Well, what an absolutely cool sighting. Definitely a first for me. I never thought I would ever see something using its proboscis in the way that we've seen it today. So that's a bonus. And it's been an absolutely awesome time having all the school kids with us. Thank you for joining our safari. Make sure you guys tune in whenever you can, and who knows what other animals and interesting things we will be able to show you in the future. For the rest of you, you'll be going across to Tristan.
Indeed you are, so it is a warm welcome to all of our regular viewers, and that was a good school drive, lots and lots of different things for them to have a look at, and so I hope that they enjoyed it. Now for all of you, remember this is interactive, so hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat if you want to ask us any questions about all the things that you've already seen and all the things that we're hopefully going to see. Now unfortunately my leopard tracks from just now are for Thandi. They go in and out from the den, and so obviously that is a closed area at the moment, and so won't be following them. Interestingly enough though, during the day we had Shadow and Thandi together, and they were having a little standoff together with Shadow's cub on the southern boundary of Djuma with little Gowrie, and it seems as though Shadow and Thandi were left walking north-west side by side, whereas Shadow's cub went into little Gowrie. Apparently they weren't fighting, they were just looking at each other and growling at each other every now and then. But interesting to see. It seems as though they must have split at some point, because there are tracks for Thandi going back towards the den. I didn't find anything for Shadow in that area, and if they were still walking side by side in the Mulawati drainage, I would have had both of them on either side. So I'm sure it all ended fine. It must have been just a little declaring of where the boundaries are, which is exactly what I would have thought would have happened. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go towards Tingana now, see if he's around and check up on him. I don't think he will be here, but maybe he will. And while I do that, let's go back to Ralph, whose lions I believe are still mobile, and I wonder if they're heading in this direction.
Okay, so these lions were mobile a minute ago, but they've all come and laid down in a different position, but they are in quite a hunting-like formation. It was almost like they were going to leave the youngsters, and now they're getting up. Looks like we might be in for some business here. There's a couple of warthog running off just to the left of us, and I wonder if they've spotted them. They're running towards us. I'm just going to wait here a little bit. And I'm going to move forward that I can just give us a better shot here. They're running towards the warthog. They've spotted those warthogs, and they're off towards them, and you can tell that they're going to head onto the hunt because and they're off. Folks, I'm going to just there goes the warthog. The warthog picking up the road, and I think that was a miss. They've all been after it, but I think it was a miss. I saw that warthog disappearing like up the road, and I don't think that they were all quite as enthusiastic as they could have been to enable them to make the kill. But that was all quite exciting, and maybe just a little bit of a warm-up for them. So it's very interesting here, folks. This has been confirmed by me in my early stages of identifying these lions in the area as the Nkuhuma pride. Now, this is 5 adult females, and one born in around 2007, 2 born in 2012, and there's a very special one here with amber colored eyes, and I was able to identify her, but now that they've all sort of shifted around after they went for that warthog, I've lost which one exactly it is. But we'll have a look again if we get to see their faces. And as you can see there from the picture, we're still quite cloudy, and it's an overcast day, not too hot, so it's actually very nice for these lions to be on the move. Now, added to that female that I was mentioning with the amber eyes, there's another one that was born in 2013, and then there's 6 sub-adults which were born last year between May and July, and then there's 2 cubs who were born in August this year, and there's 2 suspected cubs, but I haven't seen any sign of them for the time being. I've only just started to get to know these guys. Beck saying that the girls are on a mission, I totally agree. Now, that was very opportunistic with that water coming up the road, but they were very slow to react, and I think it's just because of that afternoon snooze that they were having. They were just starting to get mobile, and at the moment they're just sort of all starting to make their movements, and it seems like the youngsters are hanging back a little bit, as is the big male lion. So it is making for an interesting little while now, and they're all on the cut line, on the fire break, just parallel to us, and in a minute I might just quickly rush and get ahead of them, because then they're going to come down towards us, because we don't want to lose sight of these females, because once we lose them, very difficult to catch up with them. And as Senzo mentioned to me, even when the females start moving and the youngsters go quiet, that's the time for us to follow the females. So while I reposition, folks, and try and find out what they're going to be up to, let's go over to Tristan, who's found Tingana.
I have indeed. He's still sitting in his exact same place as yesterday, and is as fat and as full as ever. You can see he is panting away and is just trying to cope with this massive stomach that he currently has at the moment. So Tingana is still sitting exactly where we would have expected him to be, really. I wasn't 100% sure he would actually be here, given that I asked Noelle this morning. She said there wasn't too much left of his kill, and when I look up into the tree, there really is only a leg and a bit of stomach content that is hanging down, so it's not very much. And please excuse the antenna, it just parks in a way that the antenna doesn't quite work for what we're trying to show you. Is it not a little bit to the right, Vildy? No, there it is there. So there's just what's left of the carcass, very little. In fact, I would imagine he'll go up there this afternoon or this evening, much like he did yesterday, and that will be the end of that very quickly indeed. So there's not too much left. I'm pretty sure tomorrow morning Tingana will be moving around. I imagine he will stop off at the dam cam if he's looking for water. Often they do go for water after a big meal like this, because at the end of the day he's panted all day. And you can see how much saliva he loses during that panting process. He gets a lot of moisture that is lost, and so it's good to go and just try and kind of rehydrate and get as much liquid in as possible. So you'll find he'll go down there, drink, and then probably off on his patrol. And he'll be interested, I'm sure, to go and catch up with the two ladies and see what they've been up to in the form of Shadow and Tundi, as they've been quite busy today. So I'm pretty sure he'll go and check around what's going on. But you can see that he is seriously not very comfortable. You know, when a leopard has got his head up like this and is not lying down and sleeping on its side, that it's a tough time to be a leopard, although he'll be happy that he's got a full belly rather than an empty one. And I was thinking that potentially with the wind that is gusting the way that it is and the wind direction that we're having, it feels as though it's coming from the south. Now, the lions, I was saying earlier, the Nkuhuma pride is north of us and not very far at all, and I'm surprised that the scent of this is not drifting in that direction, and maybe, just maybe, the Nkuhuma pride might end up coming down this direction with Ralph. It'll be interesting. If they do come here, they won't really probably challenge Tingana too much. At the end of the day, there's not too much food there for them to get, and he'll quickly just jump up into the tree, into those small branches, and stay out of the way. Now, I believe a lot of you are discussing just how fat he is. Well, he is a bit of a ball, isn't he? He's got a round stomach at the moment, and compare that to yesterday when it was a nice bit of loose skin on the belly. You can see now that that is all gone and is now being stretched to its limit at the moment. Now, while we watch Tingana groom himself and make himself look pretty once again, let's go across to Stefan Winterboer, who seems to have found something that is at the beginning stages of its life.
Trying to find out if we've got some buffalo or something over here as well. You know, when you start hearing oxpeckers, it's a type of bird that sits on top of animals out here to eat ticks and blood. And down there we've got an oxpecker busy calling, and they make a shrill sort of warning noise, and it's just one of those things that your sixth sense out here in the bush sort of starts to pick up after a few years. Is when things giving an alarm call, especially an oxpecker, which is well known for reacting to people on foot, starts giving an alarm call. You want to see what it is. And down there I can see the ear twitch. Now I'm going to see if I can zoom you in. You just go straight there. So it was a nyala. Did you get that? Not really. It was a... Oh, come. Here we go. Sorry. There's some more nyala there or something in the distance there. Just see a tail. Looks like a male nyala with a female. Here we go. Yeah, the darker one is a male. The tawny colored one is a female. And that's what the oxpeckers are sitting on. And that is about all the warning that you get out here from dangerous stuff. You know, buffalo could quite easily have been sitting there as well. And it's good to know what is making that. And allow me now to talk to you about the eggshell that we got. This, when you see eggs out here broken, you always got to ask yourself the question why. And quite common around this time of the year is the fact that there's all the cuckoos are back. And cuckoos are what are called, or what, how is that English? Cuckoos are what is known as, please excuse me, that was too bad, is brood parasites. And so basically they don't look after their own babies. They have a couple of host birds. They come down to the nest of that host bird. They found the host bird's egg. They throw it out the nest. They lay their own egg there, and they fly away. The host bird comes back, thinks and is fooled into thinking that the cuckoo's egg is its own, and will then hatch out its babies, including the cuckoo's babies, and then keep on feeding it, even though the cuckoo baby is a different color, looks different, is sometimes much bigger than the host bird's babies. The parents will keep on looking after that baby until that baby fledges and leaves the nest. Isn't that quite clever? So I think that's exactly what happened here with this particular egg, is it got kicked out of the nest here by a cuckoo, and now something else is bringing up that cuckoo's baby. Something else that is quite interesting that I've just noticed is this bracket fungus. This is decomposing this piece of wood now, and you can see this is a type of mushroom. It's a fungus, and a very hard fungus, and was used back in the day to strop knives. So once you've sharpened your knife, you then get a fine edge by stropping it on the edges of this bracket fungi, and it would then polish the edge and give it a much sharper edge. Quite nice, eh? Anyway, on that little piece of DIY, bush DIY, we'll be sending you over to the lions.
Okay, everybody, so this is why it's very important why lions do quite a bit of stretching, especially immediately after they've woken up, because they never know when that kind of opportunistic moment can arrive, like that warthog coming along, and they need to be ready for that chase. Now, I do think that that came a little bit unexpected for them, and that's why they were so unorganized. It's not always that lions will kill what they go after. In fact, they're not fantastic in terms of their kill ratio from the times that they chase. And it sort of seems like we talk about wild dogs being one of the best success rates, and hyenas even being held above that of lions, because once they start to chase, they generally make up that kill, especially with their endurance, and they're normally exhausting animals. Now, just over there, I think that female right at the back is the one that we've been talking about, amber eyes. And if we get lucky, if she stops chasing flies, we might actually get to see her eyes there. You can get a glimpse of it. It's like a much darker amber color to the rest of them. That just gives away a little bit of the identification features of these particular lions, and that's nice for me now. From now on, if I see her, I know it's obviously definitely part of the Nkuhuma pride. And the rest of them have got a more of a like dull yellow color, whereas hers is really amber. And there she's looking at us nicely now. So a lovely identification feature, that. As she flops back down and maybe wasn't quite ready to be woken up just yet. And that warthog was very lucky that these lions are so sleepy, because that would have been a nice hors d'oeuvre to the start of the evening. It wouldn't have stood a chance if they were ready, but every warthog has his day, and definitely his day today, running past a lot of lions. So while we sit with these lovely tranquil lions, let's go over to Steph, who's also got something very tranquil.
It is quite tranquil, though more scared than anything else. But just have a look at this really, really pretty butterfly that's sitting on top of this buffalo thorn. Now, what is immediately striking is the fact that it has gold dots on it. Now, iridescent gold is quite a rare color to find out here in the bush, to be quite honest with you. It's not something that you commonly find. And yet, gold, the color gold, is made from two colors that is relatively easy to find out here, red and yellow. So the overlay of red and yellow plus a layer of keratin over that, which is all three of those compounds are quite easy to get out in the bush from the food that animals eat. Overlaid with one another gives you that iridescent gold. And yet you don't find gold as common as what you think. This particular butterfly has beautiful golden spots on her wings. I don't think we can see them now, though. They look like, A, the sun has disappeared again, and B, she's starting to open up her wings to get some heat. Now, apart from looking pretty, butterflies' wings are basically just big solar panels. The wings open up, the scales on top of the wings are there to refract and reflect the sun's energy into the lymph that flows through the wings, the fluid that flows through the wings. That then gets pumped into the body and raises the butterfly's body temperature and allows for a much faster metabolism of their food and allows butterflies to fly around as much as what they do and as fast as what they do. Now, it takes a bit of time, and of course, butterflies are most active in the middle of the day when birds are least active. And of course, butterflies then give way to moths during the evenings. And both have their ways. Butterflies have their ways of not getting eaten by birds, but moths have theirs. They don't get eaten by bats. They have their defense mechanisms for bats. Now, Ashley, you say that it's the first time that you're going, wow, you made a comment, wow, how awesome it is to see a butterfly like this, the first time that you've seen one on safari. And I must be honest, this is the first time that I've ever seen this butterfly as well. I don't even know what butterfly it is. I have no idea. I just know that those iridescent gold dots on the bottom of its wings are fairly uncommon. Although it's got a pretty common shape. What is also interesting is the fact that it's got pseudo antennae, which confuses the front from the back. So if you have a look over here, here's the front of this particular butterfly with its two antennae, but at the back it also has two antennae. Okay, I won't be showing you that anymore. Oopsie. I have got something else to show you over here though. Come and have a look. Come and have a look here. This immediately caught my eye because it's white against the green of the back, or the backdrop of green, and it belongs to a very special insect, a worm called a bagworm. And in actual fact, if I take this and turn it, you'll see that it's actually a capsule that is free moving and made up of very, very dense and tightly packed silk and lichen and whatever else is around. This has even got bits and pieces of stick and thorn in it. And what lives in it is a bagworm. This particular bagworm has closed her entrance on the side here, and I think it's a female. Females basically stay in the same place for life, and they'll move up and down the sticks eating foliage on the branches. Whereas males obviously come and look for females, and they turn into these really horrible types of worms. But these bagworms can get so inventive with the way that they make their homes. It's actually just quite astounding. This one's obviously been using the stick of this buffalo thorn. Really cool. Lily, who's only 6 years old, would like to know what the difference is between butterflies and moths. Lily, the best and only answer that I can give you right now is that butterflies fly around during the day and moths fly around during the night. There are some other subtle differences. For instance, butterflies, generally speaking, have quite colorful and iridescent scales on their wings, and moths tend to be quite hairy and plumper. They have a higher, they look fatter, in other words. They've got stubbier bodies. They eat round about the same thing, but those are about the three main things that I could say. So scales versus fur, moths tend to be chubbier and fatter, and then moths are, of course, nocturnal, and that means at night time they fly around at night, whereas butterflies are diurnal and they fly around in the middle of the day because of that one. All right. Why don't we go and see what Tingana is up to with Tristan?
Well, not much has changed. He's just changed body position a little bit. He's turned and is now facing the opposite direction and is still panting away heavily. He groomed for quite a bit just now and kind of cleaned up all of that saliva and slobber that was hanging down from the chin, and now he's just kind of taking it very easy and having a really relaxed afternoon. I'm sure he's much happier today than he was yesterday. The temperature today is half what it was. We've got nice cloud cover as well, and so it's a better conditions to be a full male leopard today than it was at this stage yesterday. But nice to see that he's still resting and relaxing. Like I say, I don't think we're going to have much more of him tomorrow morning, so it's worth just spending some time. Also, at the end of the day, you never know what's going to arrive here. I'm very surprised that we've got no hyenas in this area. It's not exactly that far from the den sites, and at the end of the day, there's a strong smell of rotten meat from this impala over the last few days. So surprised, but at least it's been good for us. It means that Tingana is still here and hasn't managed to drop anything and it had been stolen or anything like that. But that is just beautiful. You can see there actually there's a massive tick in amongst his fur, so you can see how swollen and engorged that tick is. And what you'll find with these guys is they often get these ticks, and sometimes we don't notice it because often it's, this leopard walks past us or it's at a bit of a distance, but he's lying quite close to where we are, and so we can actually see how engorged a tick can get. And I mean, that tick is maybe 50 times what its size when it first got onto there. It's gotten much more swollen and full of blood, and soon it's going to drop off and go on its own little mission and sort of molt basically, and then it will be able to breed and have its little ones that will torment and terrorize Scott and Steph over the next few days as they walk around the Sabi sands. I know Steph got absolutely mutilated by pepper ticks this morning, so all of those little tick larvae that will be in the grass is thanks to big fat full ticks like those. There's also the odd fly that is landing on his face, so he's being unfortunately parasitized by a number of different little arthropods and insects at the moment. Christy, wondering if they overeat, will they vomit it back up? So, no, not necessarily. The only time I've seen cats vomiting things back up is if they've eaten too much grass, which causes them then sometimes to get sick, but that is a process that they'll often use to try and get rid of things that they're not digesting very well. So hair, bone, hoof, those kind of things are often injected and vomited after eating grass, after they've had a big kill like this. Otherwise, the only other time I've seen it is from very old individuals that have eaten chunks of skin and bits of bone that they haven't been able to actually chew and swallow correctly, and that's meant that they've kind of regurgitated it out almost as though they were choking, and this big kind of flap of skin will come out. I've seen it with lions quite a few times, but otherwise very seldom will you see a animal vomiting if they eat too much. They will engorge themselves, and they are designed to engorge themselves to the way that they are because they don't know when they're going to lose this kill. Potentially lions could have arrived here last night, he could have dropped it when he was feeding, and so they're trying to get as much food and as much nutrients as quick as possible to make sure that they are nice and full, and then they leave this area, so they won't vomit out any valuable nutrients like that. But you can see how he's made himself almost like a little nest now. The grass is kind of flattened in a circular area around him. He's kind of rolled the whole area flat. The grass was much longer at one point, and he's kind of made this little round sort of area for him. It's obviously a comfy spot. I'm not sure why he's selecting that particular area. It's not like it's the shadiest spot. I still think that the termite mound where he was this morning with Noel would have been the best place to have him, and I was pointing it out yesterday. I was saying there's a termite mound just to my left that is the perfect place for him to lie down, but it seems as though he's happy there. He's got his little fallen over tree that's maybe providing a bit of shade, a bit of grass, and it seems all very good. But look at the size of that tummy. No loose skin today, not like yesterday. Yesterday there was loose skin all over that belly. Now it's been stretched wide and round. Jason, you were saying it's so good to see Tingana's baby yesterday morning. It is, isn't it? There's quite a few generations that this individual has fathered now. He's got a number of offspring out and about on the reserve, and so really good to see the newest generation, and hopefully Tingana will be dominant enough over the next period that that little one has got time to survive and to be able to stay healthy. It's of course going to be an interesting situation because at the end of the day he is still physically absolutely healthy, he's still big, he's still dominant, but how long that's going to be for is anyone's guess. We know that there's quarantine pushing around here. We've got Hosanna who's getting bigger by the day. We have this unknown male leopard in Buffelshoek. There's another unknown male leopard that's been seen on Simambili Arathusa. There's Anderson. So there's a number of these guys around him that are going to cause him to have a lot of pressure and a lot of stress to try and keep this area as his own, and it's hopefully he'll be able to manage that so that that little cub that Tundi's got is going to be safe and sound and be able to have a situation where it can grow up healthy and big and strong, which will be what we want at the end of the day. Now I'm not sure whether the cub is male or female, but I'm sure over time we will soon see, and that will be a good indication of whether or not that little one is going to stick around. Right, Tingana's sleeping. We're going to be patient and hope that he does the same as yesterday and repeat performance and goes up in the tree. While we do that, let's go across to Scotty D with his shell, I believe, of a snail.
It is a shell of a snail indeed. And shame, I wonder what happened to this one. This guy was probably a teenager when it died. Something may have eaten it, or maybe it died during the drought that we were recently experiencing in this area. This is called a giant African land snail, but like I said, it's not a giant quite yet. They get about the size of my fist when they're really big, so that gives you an idea of how big these guys can get. And I'm hoping we're going to be able to find you guys some. Usually they're more active in the mornings or after rain, but they're certainly one of the coolest little animals to view out here. Now, what's interesting is that even though the snail died and the shell was left on the ground, it wasn't the end of the road for the shell, because it became the home for a spider. And you can see there's quite a lot of webbing there. It could have been a spider's nest. Very clever spot to lay some eggs. And it's always wonderful to stop and just appreciate how nothing really goes to waste in nature. And even though the snail died, it became a very, very useful home for the spider, or at least possibly their eggs. We'll put it back where we found it, so maybe another spider can use it in the future. What we've been doing this afternoon is trying to actually focus on working our way through areas where there hasn't been great signal in the past. So we're doing some tests as we explore, just to make sure that we know that the backpacks and the way that they've been rigged out and fixed up over the last few months have in fact helped, and they really have done a great job. Our technical team of wizards who can manage their mastery and get these pictures to you live from Africa, isn't it phenomenal?